Do you need Carolyn's book to create a chant?
No.
No, you don't. Let's stop for a minute here and just talk about the chants. Where would a chant come in your lesson?
Near the end?
It could come near the end. It could come as sort of a let's bring it all together activity, a little bit of fun to kind of bring some closure to the class. That would be a good place. Where else could it come?
Right at the start.
It could come at the beginning. It could come as a focus activity, a warmer and, in a sense, setting context, couldn't it? Okay? And where else could it come? It could come right in the middle of your core dialogue. For example, I'm teaching where you're going, how you're going to get there, what are you going to do, and the students are having a little trouble with trying to get straight the question words here. So I have a really horrible chant that I will not inflict upon you any further than necessary that goes something like this. Where, how, what, where, how, what.
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 Where are you going?
Where are you going?
Going to the market?
Going to the market?
I won't go any further. I said I would inflict this on you minimally, okay? That sound familiar, Chris? What are these things called in the military?
Drill songs.
Oh, there's another word. Cadences. Cadences, yeah. Cadences actually work very well.
I could give you some good ones.
I think Chris might be able to give you some good ones. Anybody who's been in any kind of military knows what cadences are. But cadences work well for chants. Any cadence that could be used in that sense can also be used to put words to for a chant. Yeah, I want to encourage you to think that chants could be used anytime. Another thing you might do with a chant is, I'm doing my where are you going, how are you going to get there, and it's getting a little long, slow day, not picking it up too fast. The chant helps to clarify, but it also breaks up the pace a little, doesn't it? Brings a little life into it here. Let's stop and think for a minute, how did I do it? What was the first thing we did?
Just got up and listened.
Got up, listen, move. That's all. Just get them up, stand up, and listen to it, and just kind of, were you reading it at that time? No. Okay, and then what do we do? Sit down, and then what?
Broke it to teams.
Silent mouthing. Yeah. Again, I think there's a lot to be said for getting students to mouth something, lip syncing it, something like that, before you ask them to speak. There's a lot less risk involved, and yet, in effect, the brain has to go through the same operation. And even the lips have to go through the same operation if you don't have to take the risk of hearing yourself perhaps say it wrong or having somebody else have you say it wrong. Okay? Next thing was to...
Whisper it.
Okay. Not a bad idea. One of the problems that you'll have with chants is screeching 12-year-olds or younger. Young kids, there's nothing like a class of about 40, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, and the noise can be deafening. You definitely don't want to tell them to shout it. Okay? Matter of fact, that's going to be the last thing from your mind. One good way to start it is to have them whisper it. Not the only way, but it's an easy modality. It's also a very clear way to do it. And still, low risk. Low risk. Then, what was the next thing we did? Modes, modalities. Yeah, playing around with modalities a little bit. And it could be any modality. Doesn't matter. After lunch modality, funny modality, sad modality, whatever. Okay? Then where do you go from there? Every other line? Where do you go from there? Then where do you go from there? Tape back on? Lines and stanzas. Okay? How many times did we do the chant? About 7 times. About 7 times. About 7 times. And the chant itself repeats itself. Okay. Another message here is don't pull out a chant or a song, and we'll be doing those shortly, and start saying, we're just going to do it one time. That's not the way you do it. There's not much point in pulling it out if you're only going to do it one time. You should think of a number of times to do it, 4 or 5 times, but make sure you do it a different way every time. Okay? You have different choreographies that you could call on, or different modalities that you could call on. And between them, you have quite a number of possibilities. Okay? If you wanted to get even fancier, and it's possible with some of the chants, or perhaps chants you make yourself, you can have one group respond to the other group. So if this group does a particular modality, the other group has to respond with a modality. Then the interesting thing comes as they go back and forth. It's a question of who's creating the modality, who's following who. If you try this sometime, again, this is a theater technique, it can be a lot of fun to in effect see how different sides interpret it and recast the modality.